we think very soon the world will have a new football hero. Ryan is without doubt one of the most talented, brilliant young players in this country, and we believe in the world.
Ryan Giggs accepts he's known around the world for two things: his abilities as a footballer and his inability to remain faithful to his partners.
We can throw in several names when it comes to deciding who the best Premier League player of all time is. We're not doing that in this video. Ryan Giggs, however, has undoubtedly had the best Premier League career and is the most decorated player in the history of British football. He's won 42% of all Premier League seasons with 13 winners' medals. In fact, only Liverpool Football Club and Manchester United Football Club have won more English First Division titles outright, describing the career that Ryan Giggs had in football in a way that does it justice to someone that's never heard of him is extremely difficult. We will likely never see a player like him ever again. You could talk about how he holds records that will likely never be broken. You can talk about his never before seen combination of speed, skill, and football IQ. You can talk about his longevity and how he reinvented his game multiple times over a playing career that spanned 24 years, remaining effective all the way throughout. Nowadays, everyone goes on about Cristiano Ronaldo, how well he takes care of his body and how he's managed an unheard of level of durability, still going strong at 40 years of age. And while this is a feat that's hard to comprehend, it's not exactly unheard of. And looking at his early years, it's not hard to track the genesis of Ronaldo's influences. For the longest time, Giggs had a reputation of being private and squeaky clean. Youth prospects were told to mimic his behavior. Purely as a footballer, there seems to be no better ambassador for the English game. And yet, in today's day and age, instead of speaking about one of the many statues that should have been commissioned to honor his career, public sentiment is a lot darker. The truth is that there appears to be a reason that Ryan Giggs had a reputation for being extremely private. Many stories have been confirmed to be fiction. Regardless, irreversible damage has been done, and the court of public opinion seems to have made its verdict. Just take a look at the comment section if you don't believe me. Even further, this is a story of how one man's failed efforts brought into question the effectiveness of British privacy laws. Today, we're going to dive deep to attempt to piece it all together. Sporting excellence was always on the cards in this story. Born in 1973 in Cardiff, Wales, Ryan Giggs was born as Ryan Wilson. His father was Danny Wilson, a professional rugby player, capped for the Welsh national side, primarily operating as a fly-half, the position I would say that requires the most coordination and technical ball skills in the game. Ryan had the genes. At 6 years of age, Danny Wilson secured a position at Salford-based rugby club Swinton RLFC, now known as Swinton Lions. This saw the whole family move to Manchester. The early years for Ryan Wilson weren't very easy on him for a multitude of reasons. The move down to Manchester was tough.
Didn't want to move, was really close to my grandparents, all my family were there.
His father was of Sierra Leone Creole roots, meaning Ryan was mixed race. This was the 70s and 80s after all. You can already guess that this caused problems. According to Ryan, Danny Wilson was a very high-profile man locally and maybe the best player at Swinton. Even still, the entire family received racial abuse, particularly the kids, Ryan and his brother Rodri, from other children. His father and mother had a troubled relationship and separated when he turned 15. Of the many reasons for this, the most prominent seems to be violence and infidelity. I was in my 20s with quite a high profile as a rugby player, and the girls threw themselves at me. Wilson said this in an exclusive interview in 2023. Ryan lived with his mother following the breakup, which eventually led him to formally change his last name to his mother's maiden name, Giggs. For those reasons and many more, Ryan Giggs describes his childhood as troubled. However, football was his escape from all the craziness. He was unnervingly talented, a player of both rugby and football from an early age, but it was football that prevailed as the sport of choice. He captained every squad he played in from the very beginning, gaining notoriety from every direction. Starting out at local side Deans FC, he was scouted by Manchester City and spent a few years there on a schoolboy basis. Eventually, in 1986, at 13, Sir Alex Ferguson offered him a trial against the United under-15 side on the advice of one of his coaching staff. Giggs scored a hat-trick. A gold miner who has scoured every part of the river or mountain and then suddenly finds himself staring at a nugget could not have felt more exhilaration than I did watching Ryan that day. At 14, Ferguson showed up to his house and the rest is history. Giggs only grew stronger from there, with the intention being for him to be fast-tracked to the first team in only 3 years. So, in 1991, at 17, he made his first team debut, coming on as a substitute for Dennis Irwin. By 1992, he was already an important member of the first team, making 51 appearances in 91-92, starting 41 of those games.
Ryan, have you surprised yourself?
I'm surprised that I got such a long run in the first team. Beginning of the season I thought I'd only get a couple of games.
He made the left wing his own and was becoming a well-known menace. All the while, he was still only 18 years old and suiting up for the youth sides. Maybe the most notable appearance for that side was the 1992 FA Youth Cup final against Crystal Palace. 6-3 on aggregate, Giggs as captain. The significance of this win was that those involved would later be popularized as the class of '92, a group of exceptional young players that would form the backbone of the most successful team in Premier League history. Gary Neville, Nicky Butt, David Beckham, and Ryan Giggs. Phil Neville and Paul Scholes did not play in this final, but were in the youth side that made the final the following year. Giggs followed that up with back-to-back PFA Young Player of the Year awards and his first Premier League title win. Coincidentally, the first Division title for Manchester United in 26 years. He may not have known it at this point, but life was about to drastically change. Not just for him, but for the entire world of football. On this channel, I've spoken a lot about how the boom in revenue and international acclaim of the Premier League has shaped it into what it is today. One of the most prestigious and rapidly growing sports and entertainment enterprises that the world has ever seen. In the mid-90s, the marketing and distribution efforts of the Premier League are what turned it into the behemoth it is today. TV coverage went global. Brands saw the increase in exposure to the league and began funneling money towards clubs and players to promote their products at obscene rates. Ryan Giggs was the ultimate poster boy. Young, handsome, big innocent eyes, already a superstar, he was the man, and the world and advertisers couldn't get enough of him. By 95-96, the class of '92 hit the mainstream, but Giggs was far and away the poster boy and had an extremely unique reputation that set him apart from his United teammates. 95-96 also happened to be his joint best season number-wise, 11 goals and 9 assists, 20 goal contributions. Which may not sound like a lot by superstar wing standards in today's day and age, but remember, he was a traditional winger. His job was to stay wide. He was not a goal scorer. These were fabulous numbers. With Beckham, his celebrity often overshadows his incredible career. However, with Giggs, the celebrity and the player were one in the same. He was deeply loved by United fans, massively respected by opposition fans, and a clear dressing room favorite.
His regular post bag is 2,000 letters a week. His grandfather sorts through them for him. Valentine's Day brought 6,000 cards.
Competitive, yet not as intense as Roy Keane or Cantona. Quiet, yet not as reserved as Paul Scholes. And he had the moment to show for it. Frequently scoring blinders, providing assists like they were nothing, embarrassing defenders all day long. His pace was monstrous. Looking back at old clips doesn't seem to even do it justice. Nobody could catch him. Plus, he had a football IQ in another stratosphere. Usually those two things are mutually exclusive. It was great for me and Dennis as fullbacks because any winger playing against us would spend all their time tracking back defensively against our wingers. We'd hardly have anything to do. Paul Parker, Manchester United fullback. Who could forget the semi-final replay winner in the 1999 FA Cup against Arsenal? Patrick Vieira loses the ball and things get hairy really quick. Giggs just decided to do it all himself. United made it to the Champions League final that year too. Bayern Munich. And just as it seemed that all hope was lost and they were on the edge of defeat, 1-0 down at the 91st minute, Teddy Sheringham pulls United level and Solskjaer seals the deal. The assist on the Sheringham goal? Ryan Giggs. Trophies, trophies, more trophies. Giggs was an absolute nailed-on mainstay and despite 1 or 2 hamstring irritations, was never sidelined for long stretches. However, there were blips. By 2003, after 11 years in the first team but still only 28 years of age, Giggs was having one of the worst seasons of his career. He wasn't as sharp as he once was. As such, as the tabloids do, speculation over whether he was over the hill with his United career hit like a tidal wave. Inter Milan was a name that was being thrown about, a swap with Adriano was what was being proposed, Juventus too, and it seems that all the Italy talk was more than just rumours.
Oh, I could have sold them to half a dozen Italian clubs, so they were all on to me. I remember Capella said to me one day, "Ryan Giggs, could he play in Italy?" I said, "He could play anywhere." I said, I just asked the question. So I knew he was interested.
But Giggs stayed put. He even scored twice against Juventus in 02-03, one of which was a goal of the season candidate. As the years ticked on, Giggs fell victim to Father Time and began to lose that electric pace and athleticism that set him apart. But for generational players like this, that was not a problem. While his body wasn't what it used to be, his mind continued to sharpen. The arrivals of the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Eric Jemba, Nani, Tevez, and other wide and advanced players, Giggs was no longer a realistic option for the role he once dominated. So, he reinvented himself and moved deeper infield to occupy positions that required less physical input but more mental input, and he excelled. By 2008, at 34 years old, he started 33 games across all competitions, featuring in 43 as United won a league and Champions League double. He was the scorer of United's final penalty kick in the UCL final versus Chelsea. Looking back, most people will remember this season for Cristiano Ronaldo's first Ballon d'Or and his smashing of all the scoring records, but we were all bearing witness to something unbelievable in Ryan Giggs' continued excellence. So now we go back to what I said in the intro. Even with all that I've just said, it's hard to really make newer fans understand how good Giggs was. In reality, he was probably only the outright best player for United in short bursts over the years. Eric Cantona, Roy Keane, David Beckham, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Nemanja Vidic, Robin van Persie, you can attribute specific seasons where all of these guys were the absolute top guys at the club. In fact, Giggs only ever won the Manchester United Player of the Year award once, in 1998, and this was the year where United lost the title to Arsenal, Eric Cantona had just retired, and Roy Keane, widely thought to be the best player at the club at the time, was out with a season-long injury. All of this wrongly dilutes claims by older fans on Giggs' brilliance, but doesn't take into account his consistently high level of ongoing achievement. 6 months before his 41st birthday, he decided to call it quits. So let's put that consistently high level of ongoing achievement into numbers. 963 appearances for Manchester United, a record that will not be broken anytime soon, if ever. Never received a single red card in any of his games for United. 632 appearances in the Premier League. Only player to play in 22 successive Premier League seasons, scoring in 21 of them. 162 Premier League assists. A record that will not be broken anytime soon, if ever. Most assists of any British player in the Champions League with 31. 13 Premier League titles. 4 FA Cups. 2 Champions Leagues. What a career. Many people have received statues for much less. In another timeline, I'd be showing you an image of him immortalized in stone outside of Old Trafford. He was anointed as an OBE in 2009, and he's been very active in giving back to the community. A quick search over the past couple of decades shows a very active schedule involving charitable endeavors. Based on his trajectory, you wouldn't dismiss a knighthood possibly being in his future. Instead, the tone of this video is about to shift dramatically. Ryan Giggs, nice guy, finishes first. the title of a 2010 article written in The Guardian. Such was the reputation of the man. The article describes a brilliant, private, family man and mentions much of the information I've already shared prior to this point in the video. Giggs was not only seen as this elderly role model of a statesman, but also one of the last true beacons of morality in the world of really top-level British football players. The sentiments in this article, written in October of 2010, appear to have been short-lived. The original author retracted and rewrote the story only 8 months later. It appears everything was not as it seemed, but before we understand why, some terminology. I present to you the Privacy Injunction, a legal order issued by a court to prevent the publishing or disclosure of private or confidential information about an individual. This would be used by celebrities or corporations to protect their reputations, weird but legal hobbies, and more. Injunctions usually bar aspects of a story being published, i.e. a name or a place. So, following along to go a step beyond, I present to you the Super Injunction. Instead of just an element, a super injunction prevents anything about the injunction being publicized, even the fact that the injunction exists in the first place. Complete and total silence. Which is why orders of this nature are also referred to as gagging orders. It's like Fight Club. Ironically, right down to the detail that everybody talks about Fight Club. Once upon a time, these orders were effective. Nowadays, however, the effectiveness of these orders is debatable. Why? Among other influences, a little blue bird. In April of 2011, a super injunction against the publishing of the details of an affair involving Imogen Thomas, a reality TV star, and an entity known as CTB was granted. It's estimated that CTB reportedly paid up to £200,000 in legal fees for the super injunction. This of course meant that no news outlet could publish details of this affair without facing heavy legal consequences. However, in May of 2011, an anonymous Twitter user published a series of tweets listing celebrities with super injunctions in place. Some of them were proven to be false accusations, while others were not. CTB attempted to sue Twitter for allowing their name to be published on their site and to give them the identity of the anonymous user. Unfortunately for CTB, Twitter is an American company, thus not falling under the restrictions of this UK ruling. At this point, hundreds of thousands of people had been made aware of CTB's ongoing effort. English news outlets were constantly publishing articles on the situation, with the only restriction being they couldn't name CTB directly. However, they could name Imogen Thomas directly because she did not have a super injunction in place. Meanwhile, over on Twitter, people were openly saying CTB's name and posting their picture.
With about 75,000 people having named Ryan Giggs on Twitter, it's obviously impracticable to imprison them all.
This is Member of Parliament John Hemming speaking on the ridiculousness of enforcing a privacy ruling for something that was very clearly no longer private. He was using a thing called parliamentary privilege, which protects MPs from legal consequences during parliamentary proceedings when discussing issues of public interest. CTB, as many had already been aware, was revealed to be Ryan Giggs. According to the details of the injunction, he got the order to prevent Imogen Thomas from selling the story of the affair to The Sun, but ended up making things much, much worse. The irony appears to be that if the story had just come out, a lot of people would be extremely angry and disappointed, don't get me wrong, this would have been huge news. But because this became a case study for the effectiveness of privacy injunctions in the social media era, this story 100x'd in coverage. Moreover, it possibly would not have led to the most shocking revelation. When it rains, it pours, because only weeks later, Tinashe Giggs, the wife of Ryan's brother, Rodri, began to trend. In 2003, Giggs was dating his pregnant future wife, Stacey Cook. That same year, his brother, Rodri Giggs, met his future wife, Natasha Lever. Eventually, the two would have 2 children together and marry in 2010. All seemed well. However, 1 year later, in the middle of the biggest media clusterfuck in the life of Ryan Giggs, Natasha Giggs decided to share some truths. Before Rodri and Natasha got together, she had a relationship with Ryan and did not stop for 8 years.
And how was the affair with Ryan conducted? I mean, where did you go? How did you keep it secret?
I worked as an estate agent, so I had access to properties. It would meet and...
You'd have houses that you're about to show, and you'd say, listen, there's a house up the road.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe how shocking this revelation was to the footballing world at the time. This was poster boy Giggs we're talking about. With Giggs now being outed as CTB, there was inevitably going to be intense scrutiny on his private life. The story was hot. And according to Rodri Giggs, Natasha's timing of her admission was calculated.
And how did you find out about it? 6 o'clock in the morning, a mum and a sister knocked on the door and presented the paper and... How had it got in the papers? Through Natasha. And why had she done that? Obviously for money.
At the time, and to this day, he goes on news shows, radio shows, gives exclusive interviews to newspapers, makes podcast appearances, and appears to be very active on Twitter. The most notable of his appearances was a hilarious Paddy Power commercial, with the theme being loyalty.
Bitter?
Not anymore, Pam. Champagne, please.
Just popping out.
Where are you going?
To the shops, Rod. We need milk.
We do need milk.
He wasn't doing all of this for nothing. As recently as February of 2025, he claimed that he made £1 million from the constant retelling and reselling of the story. We live in a crazy world. Believe me when I tell you that there is so much more detail to the situation, most of it being word of mouth from family and alleged friends, but I've intentionally left out almost all of that to stay on topic and give you the gist of it. The point I'm trying to make with all of this is that Giggs' reputation would never be the same. His actions and the people in his life fueling the flames made sure of it. But realistically, life went on. Ryan Giggs joined Louis van Gaal's coaching staff after retiring, but left after Mourinho came in 2016. With that came an end to 29 years with the club. 3 in the academy, 24 as a professional, and 2 as a coach. But his coaching career was kept alive as his home country welcomed him with open arms in 2018. This situation had its own complications, and to understand that, we have to detail his tricky relationship with Wales. Here, we have a generational wonder kid with a generational career at the very top, the kind of talent that we've seen countless nations pin their hopes and dreams on. And while he has voiced his commitment to Wales on several occasions throughout his career, he made it easy for all to form the opinion that these were empty words. I'd rather go through my career without qualifying for a major championship than play for a country where I wasn't born or which my parents didn't have anything to do with. He said this when asked if he had ever considered playing for England. It's a great quote to evidence patriotism. In his autobiography, he had some more words that confirmed a different sentiment. At that time, whenever I played 2 games in 1 week, I always seemed to pick up an injury. So Alex Ferguson and I sat down and looked at it game by game. If the international was a friendly, the feeling was that I didn't have to play. He prioritized United. And from a club perspective, this was a brilliant move. Giggs retired from international football in 2007 at 34 years of age, and then went on to play another 7 years of top-flight football. But as you can imagine, many felt he could have done more for his country as a player, and his case wasn't helped by the existence of the very next left-footed Welsh wizard, Gareth Bale, aka Mr. Wales Golf Madrid. He won everything at club level with the added accolade of guiding Wales to their first major tournament since 1958, Euro 2016. Wales made it to the semi-finals against all odds, and Bale was the driving force. He has almost double the appearances for Wales in the same number of active years. For Wales, you could say that Bale was everything Giggs was supposed to be, which goes some way to explain the sentiments surrounding Giggs at the time of this appointment. He did a great job with Wales actually, leading them to qualification to the 2020 Euro. However, this was a tournament he would not participate in. In late 2020, right before the tournament, Giggs was arrested on suspicion of assaulting his ex-girlfriend, Kate Greville, and her younger sister. He was also accused of coercive and controlling behavior towards her between 2017 and 2020 when they split. In 2023, after a lengthy trial, all charges were dropped, as Greville indicated an unwillingness to give further evidence as the entire process had taken a toll on her and her family. If you want to read about all the details of the court proceedings, the live coverage of the trial at the time is linked in the description. I'm not going to go into detail here, I only bring it up because the details that were forcibly revealed in the trial were not pleasant and tanked Giggs' reputation even further. The man was acquitted, but the public had already passed judgment. This situation painted a picture of a very troubled relationship. Nobody was painted in a good light. Giggs admitted to never having stayed faithful to any woman he's ever been with, and that this was as a result of his life changing as a teenager when he was recognized by everyone on the street. Greville was found to have lied about discovering cancerous cells through a pap smear and used that as cover to visit a hospital. She was actually having a contraceptive coil removed without Giggs' knowledge. She staged showcasing the after effects of an alleged assault over 2 weeks after it occurred. Giggs was actually her boss, as she was employed as the head of PR for many business interests held between Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, and others. There were 350 pages of back and forth messaging over multiple years between the couple that was subject to discussion between the two in open court. Most of it was just plain nasty work. Sir Alex Ferguson made an appearance as a character witness for Giggs. It was a whole show. As things stand, Ryan Giggs' legacy is an extremely complicated topic. He's arguably the greatest Manchester United player of all time. You could argue that other sports personalities have done worse and aren't vilified as much as Giggs. However, the nature of how all these stories came out and how viral they went made them stick. Will Ryan Giggs ever be able to make a comeback? Who knows? What we do know is that what we have here is proof that not everyone is willing to separate the art from the artist.